Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Free Birth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
I am grateful to be bringing you the story of a wise woman with quite the story to tell. Shanika is from Jamaica, currently living in Atlanta, Georgia, and both a free birther and a radical birth keeper. She tells us of her first birth at 17 in the hospital, and then the tragic tale of her daughter's death 3 years later. And yet, in the loss of her daughter, Shanika had a true spiritual awakening and became the incredible woman that she is today. Shanika is a deep well of wisdom, and her story will surely inspire you to be your authentic self.
I was born in Jamaica, and then I came to America when I was about 6 years old. So my parents, had to make a decision and a journey to come to somewhere totally new and try to make life. So not a lot of people know this about me if they don't really know me, but my father was like a drug dealer. Like his whole side of my father's family, like aunts, and he had about 12 brothers and sisters, and maybe about 2 or 3 of them wasn't into that life, but the rest of them, that's what they did to survive. And going up in Philly, like that was the culture of like being Jamaican and, trying to find some autonomy and success monetarily. So that's what I grew up with. But then when I was about 10 years old, my father built a house in Jamaica. We went back for 2 years and I attended school there. And then my mom made the decision to come back to Philadelphia with my sister. And then my father went to England, to live. So at that point, when I was 12, it was a very pivotal time for me because I lost one parent and my mom became a single mother, which really defined like the rest of my life. So
you went to Philly?
Yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was 16, my mother was actually pregnant with my little brother. So this was the winter of 2003. December, my mom's pregnant. I'm at the hospital with her.
Wow.
December 13th, and she goes into labor, and I'm there witnessing my first childbirth, my little brother, and I was literally like the first person to hold him.
Mm-hmm.
And that like rocked my world. Like he's like, he's like my son now. And
Wow.
and we're still brothers and sisters because I'm actually old enough to be his mother. But the nurse that was there made a joke. She was like, well, this is a great form of birth control. But what she didn't know is that about that time, I was already about 1 month pregnant. Like I just found out like I was pregnant and I was witnessing this.
Wait, did you know you were pregnant at the birth?
At the birth, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did your mother know?
She didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you and your mother were pregnant at the same time, barely, by like one cycle. Yeah. Wow. So you had just found out.
Yeah, my brother was born December 2003, and then I had my daughter 8 months later, and I turned 17. She was born August the 4th, 2004. So that was like my whole introduction to birthing. Never really gave it much thought before that. But yeah, I had a hospital birth. I was 17 years old, and there wasn't like a lot of information or education about birth. I'm still like in the last year of my high school year and, just having fun. Happened to get pregnant and, there wasn't like, oh, let me read a book or let me do this or that. I just kind of went with the process and like my aunt who lived in Florida supported me, just talking to me and things like that. So it was actually like talking to her while I was like feeling labor. And I was like, went to the bathroom and I wiped myself. And I was like, this looks like mucus. She's like, oh yeah, you're getting close. You need to go to the hospital now. And with that knowledge, I went and like I had my baby like instantly. Like as soon as they brought me up to the hospital room, she came right out.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, birthing at 17. That's one of the most amazing benefits. Wow. Okay, so you just had like a couple hour labor. What was your experience like in the hospital?
Well, for one, I was alone. Like the father wasn't there. Like a friend of mine picked me up and dropped me off. I think my mom might have been at work. So I was the only one there.
Whoa.
Had the baby myself and, different people coming in and out and things like that. Overall, I didn't have like a traumatic birth, but my daughter did have meconium and she was like basically in the ICU for maybe about 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah, because she ingested it and they had to put her on antibiotics and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So besides that, there wasn't any trauma or anything. I wasn't there long enough for anything to happen. So I thank God that she came right out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, time went on. Fast forward 3 years later, this time, I was working, had my own place, but I was a single mother because her father wasn't there. And he was a much older guy, but he wasn't there. And, doing everything on my own and everything. And, life tragedy struck. My daughter passed away.
Mm-hmm.
She was with my little sister and their friends. They kind of like kids hanging out. But where I lived in Southwest Philly, there's this Schuylkill River, and there was this kind of like pier. It was like a flat pier. It didn't have any like railings or anything to stop you from basically jumping in the water. So what I was told was that my little brother and my daughter, they had rocks and they were throwing rocks in the water. And it's kind of like she went forward with the momentum of throwing the rock and fell in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Into a river?
Into a river, yeah. Yeah.
And drowned.
She drowned. Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that was
a
pretty like monumental period in my life.
Oh, wow.
I was I want to say I was like 20. Yeah, I was 20 when she passed away. So I was still young and trying to find myself, but that experience really pushed me. I don't know if I call it like the dark night of the soul, but it really made me started questioning life and thinking on such a more deeper level for like meaning and what reality is.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So for that experience, like I experienced so much growth. There was definitely grieving, but I always say that experience makes or breaks you. You can become more pessimistic. You can become depressed. There's cycles and phases.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you don't stay in that energy of being stuck and depressed. But for me, it really made me like tune into spirit more and connect with like my higher self and who I am. Because I remember the experience of like them taking her to the hospital and then, they I don't know if they do this all the time, but they put her in a room and I had the opportunity to kind of like go in there and, hold her. So when I went in there and like I was holding her and I just had a realization like whatever that animated her and gave her life wasn't there anymore. And it was like a wake-up call like, wait, we're not this body. There was something more that created that spark and that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that understanding, it was kind of like I woke up.
Wow.
I was able to like not necessarily like just be in grief. Yeah. I don't know. That made me become spiritual.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think that that is a very shared experience, to unite with death and know death and contend with death. And obviously, we're in a culture that's walking around pretending like it doesn't exist. And then
Mm.
when something so completely unexpected just breaks open your world, yeah, it's such an opportunity for that. Oh, my daughter's almost 3, and I'm just imagining. Woo, yeah. I hope I'd be able to handle it that gracefully.
Our children come through us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't belong to us. And, we can't control everything. We can't control when we die. We can't even control birth. We try to prepare for it the best that we can, but you have to surrender at some point to the experience. So that's like a big takeaway for me in that experience. So when she passed away, it was October 2007. And around that time, I met my now oldest child. I met her father. And, he was there for me, like in the grieving process and, just there as a support because he was like a person very active in the community and teaching and things like that. So I met him and like things went really fast. So that was the October. In the December, me and him like were a couple and we moved in and, my birthday was December 24th and he's buying me gifts and stuff. And then I like got pregnant right away. Like at the end of January, I realized that I was pregnant. And interestingly enough, I knew the moment conception happened because I felt a spark in my pineal gland and there was this like electric impulse that went down to my womb and I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Yeah, it's crazy. So I got pregnant with her right away. And then between that time frame, I connected with my mom more and talked to her. And I really wanted to know about my own birth story. And, I was born in Jamaica in a Jubilee hospital. And back, in the 80s, it, it wasn't great. Now it's still not great, but back then it was a lot worser. So she told me about like being alone, being drugged and not fully remembering what happened. And then waking up like hours later and I wasn't there and, like just being separated from me through that process. So she really didn't fully remember my birth. I was vaginal birth, but she couldn't tell me if they used forceps or what happened because they drugged her.
Mm-hmm.
So from that experience, I was just like, well, I want to create something different. Like, I didn't know, like, the concept of free birthing wasn't really a thing back then. And I've never really heard about it. But I knew that, like, natural or home birth didn't exist. This is something that very much outside of my lineage, like my direct lineage, my mother, my grandmother, they were hospital births. So there wasn't a direct connection to like, oh yeah, my aunt did this or someone did this, let me do it.
And I keep thinking that with your first daughter, you were also alone and then separated from her.
Yeah,
You weren't
yeah.
drugged, thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
but that you saying you wanted to create something different is just so powerful because it's like, that you kind of did repeat a similar birth story unconsciously, right? Like it's just what you do. And then in her death and in this new life, there's this whole shift of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. And it was
It's
like I was
incredible.
giving, another chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because with her, I wasn't aware of anything. I didn't breastfeed. I didn't have anyone like, oh, you should do this or, any support about anything. So, my now oldest daughter, Arashana, it was just kind of like, I don't want to say a way to do it right, but to do something that maybe I didn't know that I wanted, but it was in me.
It was right for
So
you.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is biologically right,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So quick question. Did your mother breastfeed you? Do you know?
She did a little bit.
Okay.
Because even back then it was like kind of like stigmatized. There was some things about breastfeeding and relating to sex and the culture in Jamaica. It was just kind of like sometimes like a status thing. Like if you can afford like formula and feed your baby, it seems better.
Oh, bonkers. And so what was in terms of you not nursing? Well, your daughter was in the NICU for 2 weeks. Of course you didn't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you're going to create something different, but you've never really been shown these options. And so how does this idea of free birth like present itself into your psyche?
I want to say it was totally spiritual because like going through the death of my daughter, like I started to do a lot of like yoga. Like literally like I went to yoga every day. I started doing Bikram yoga. So that was my therapy. And I started meditating and just reading books and really like connecting to my higher self more. And like these ideas just came to me like, oh, I can have a home birth. And then I like interviewed a midwife and I just didn't vibe with her. And like spirit was just like, well, you can do it on your own. And I presented the idea to their father and he was like, yeah, he was already like a revolutionary
Nice.
in the way that he thinks and lives. And he was like, oh yeah, let's do it. So once I had that support of, the father, it made everything easier.
Hmm.
And, I did tell like my mother and she was like freaking out and
I bet.
yeah, to the point where like I had her like at 5:12 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And then a couple hours later, the ambulance showed up.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Your mom called?
And I feel like my mom called. She was worried and yeah, ambulance showed up and the father was like, oh yeah, they're fine. And he bought the the EMT to come and look at us and he was like, yeah, they're fine. And they just left. They were like, yeah,
Okay,
everything's
good.
fine. Yeah. I had a wild pregnancy. I didn't go to any doctor's appointments. I actually went to one doctor appointment, and that was more logistically when I thought about like getting a birth certificate and having proof that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that guidance to just go to one, have that documented that I was pregnant and everything's okay. But other than that, I just, winged it really. I ate healthy. I really walked a lot and exercised, just walked. I wasn't working and I had a lot of time. So that's what I did was walking. But everything went great. Like I didn't have a lot of knowledge about birth or anything, but I trusted the process. I felt supported. I knew that my body could do it. I had one prior experience of having a baby and it went great. So I was like, okay, why not?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everything went, it was an amazing birth.
What do you remember of it?
I remember like, it was like Friday night and I started having contractions like around 11 p.m. And I was like, oh my God, I think this is it. And I remember like, she was like, overdue. So my mom was already worried, but I was like, no, everything's fine. The baby will come when she's ready. But I remember going into labor at around 12 p.m. And, everything just unfolded beautifully. Like I had music on, created this ambiance, candles, and, just kind of went with the process of what my body wanted. I sat on the toilet and labored. And one thing I really loved was like getting in the shower and laboring with the water just flowing on me. And then, a couple hours later, I'm on my hands and knees, and that's how I birthed her.
Hmm.
And her father, caught her and then, slid her through my legs, and I sat back with her.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful experience. And really just made me like trust birth even more. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. It can happen naturally without doctors, without intervention. And, the same environment that created the baby, birthed the baby. It was me and him. It was dark. We were making love. It was that same ambiance that we gave birth into.
Mm.
Yeah. And I really, broke a cycle of having my baby, being fully present and conscious, and having that bond like from the moment of birth.
Oh, it's such a big deal. And then did you breastfeed this baby?
Yeah, I breastfed. Yeah. And I had to figure that out myself. Like,
Right.
Cracked nipples, mastitis, all of that.
No.
Like being in like wrenching pain.
Oh.
That was like the worst. But, I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And after I had Arashana, I just made me more interested in birth. And I found out like there's a thing called doulas. And then I took a doula training and, really just contemplated like, well, how can I do this? How can I support women in birth? So after I took that doula training, I started to attend births.
Okay. And so
I wanted to become a midwife.
you knew that pretty early on?
Yeah.
How many years apart are your two daughters?
They are about 2 years apart.
Okay. So in between those two, you take the doula training and you start going to births?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have a baby and then soon you're pregnant, but you're going to births.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Well, I had my mom around, my little sister
nice.
around in Philadelphia.
Okay. Oh, this was all in Philly. I keep forgetting that. Yeah, that you're newer to Georgia.
Yeah. And actually where I lived, where I actually gave birth, I grew up on that street for like a few years. So my mom was literally like 4 miles down the street.
Whoa. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so then just take us into your next pregnancy.
Well, Ray, I got pregnant with her. I know I wanted the same thing. It was like obvious. Yeah. So pretty much wasn't much different. Like at that point, I actually was in Florida for quite a bit because I had family there. And when it came time, close time to birth, I was like, okay, it's just me and my daughter here. I don't know who would support me in having a home birth, so I made the decision to go back to Philadelphia and birth her. And pretty similarly, like I remember going into labor, actually I had contractions with her like the night before and then they stopped. So I was like, okay, it's coming on. Then the next day I go into labor in the afternoon and, still pretty active because I was like, I remember there's this health food store in Philadelphia called Essenes. So I was staying at my mom's in Southwest. So I went to South Philly, go to Essenes, get some food. I got some like raw juices and I'm in the store like this and rocking. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just in early labor.
Cute.
Yeah, so that was like really great. I got my juice and then I went to their dad's house. And at this point,
you were still with the dad at this point?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
Like when I met him, he was already with someone, but he was like Muslim and polyamorous. So, she was there in the house. I knew that I had to birth, there. I didn't have anywhere else to birth. So I went upstairs with the dad and, labored and, an hour later she was born. Same position, hands and knees, came right out.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I'm very blessed to like have, I don't want to say easy births, but pretty good labors and pretty good births. I feel like a lot of that is because I trust the process.
Oh, yeah.
And I just surrender to it.
Mm-hmm. Just get it done. Wow. Okay. So she comes out. You're in the father's home who's partnered and the woman is there.
Yeah,
that's a trip. There. But was she loving to you? I mean,
no.
Oh,
she hated my.
Okay.
So actually, me and her were pregnant at the same time.
Oh my gosh. That is so intense.
We're pregnant at the same time, but she attempted to have a home birth, but it didn't work and she had to be transferred.
Oh.
So there was always this kind of like competition that she had with me. Like, I have to do it like her, or I need to have a home birth and all that. So it didn't, happen for her, and she ended up being transferred. And I would guess that it was probably pretty like triggering to have me, the other woman upstairs.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah. So, I gave birth. I stayed there overnight and then I went back to my mom's. Like, we didn't officially break it off, but I just left to have distance from the situation and the other woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my daughter was about 3 months, I officially like broke it off with him and moved to my own place and did all of that. But in that time frame, I was still attending births, not as much because I made the decision that I wanted to be fully present for them. So the good thing about that father, he was very supportive where I didn't have to like worry about going back to work. I could just mother. So that's what I did and, continued studying and, going to births when I could. Then I met Ananda's dad. This was 2014. Yeah, wow, 2014. This is after I had my second Yare, I actually moved away to New Mexico. And then after I came back to Philadelphia, I met Ananda's father. And with him for a little while. And after I got pregnant, the December, I remember having this dream. I dreamed about Boulder, Colorado. I remember the dream, like I was in this luscious garden and I just remember the voice like, this is Boulder, Colorado. This is what it needs to be.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So I ended up moving to Boulder, Colorado, like middle of my pregnancy, like, bye. I left him in Philadelphia and moved to Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, I had her there.
And did you bring your older girls?
Yeah, it was just me and my older girl, my two other girls and me in Boulder, Colorado, and my big belly, didn't know anyone. I think I knew one person. I met this one guy at this yoga retreat, and he connected me with the woman that he was with, and that's where I initially stayed when I went there in Denver, and then I ended up in Boulder. And then I found this midwife. I knew I wanted to have a home birth again, unassisted, but as such, it was just me and my daughter. So I wanted to have another person there to support me.
Of course, yeah.
So I found this midwife.
Do you birth at the place that you got connected to through the one friend?
No, actually, like we were literally homeless because we were trying to find like housing in Boulder, which is like super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up in this kind of like temporary shelter and where you have like your own apartment and everything. And I had my baby there, which would have been like totally against any rules that they had. But yeah, I literally, they brought me the birth pool and we set it up and everything, had it ready. And I had her right there. And the people, they still don't know to this day. They probably went to the hospital and then came back.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so tell us about that birth.
Well, that birth, I started having contractions the night before, like all night. It would just be very like sporadic and random. I'm sleeping and then I wake up like, oh, something's going on here. But all night. And it was like my body was just gently doing the work and preparing me. And I love that because the next day, things started to ramp up more. I took my girls to summer camp and then I picked them back up at about 3:30. At this point, I'm in pretty much like labor's going. So, I still am able to drive, keep my shit together, drive, pick them up, go to the health food store again, like, and pick up a few things and then go back in the house. And midwife comes. She had like, her name was Amanda. She had like a doula, her support come with her. And yeah, then we set up the pool and it's just so beautiful because my two daughters were in the pool with me while I was laboring.
Oh.
And then right before I had her, they got out. But it was by far like my other births were easy, but this by far was the easiest birth. Like my body did all the work. And like when I was, about to push, she was like, you could basically like see her head before I even pushed.
Whoa.
Yeah, like my body did all the work and brought her down. Like I probably pushed like 2 or 3 times. Then when she was born, they went outside, and I remember Amanda being like, there's like double rainbows outside. Yeah, and then my girls went outside and seen it. Like that was like her birthing.
So did you ever feel pain in that birth?
No, I wouldn't even say pain. There's a ring of fire, yes. But it wasn't painful like how women might describe birth as being painful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And tell us more about what it felt like to have an authentic midwife hold space for you. And, like we were talking about before we started recording, that it's such a beautiful story that you had these 2 free births and you felt well supported by the father of these children. And then you find yourself in a new situation without that. And you were able to manifest an authentic midwife. And I love that I actually know her because I know who she is and how she midwives. And I really get what you mean now. Who intentionally chooses to not be licensed, and restricted, and who is just so devoted to serving, And anyway, so yeah, just tell me about that, because it is a bit unique, right? That you have these 2 free births and then choose a midwife. And I think this is such a good example of a story of like what we want to be possible for so many women, for all women, who want it, to be able to find a midwife who is loyal to the mother, and so, yeah, how was that after these 2 free births outside the system with a man, and then to have this woman come into your life and another, I guess, sounds like a doula was there too. And how did that feel?
I mean, it felt so divine, like to find her and for her to be everything that I wanted. Like I told her, like, I don't want to say I'm a pro at this, but I'm a pro at this. I was like, I had 2 unassisted births already. I've given birth 3 times. I'm pretty confident in the process. I don't want a lot of intervention. I don't even want much prenatal care. And she was like, well, yeah, whatever you want, that's what you're going to get. And she like totally respected and honored like all of my wishes. Yeah. And was still there to like give me support in any way that I wanted. So to know that like midwives like that exists really inspires me, because like that's how I want to be for women.
Exactly.
Like I want to have like the knowledge and skill to support a woman if, she wants that more hands-on support, but also to be able to just let go and women birth the way that they want to birth. It's so important. And yeah, we just need more midwives like that, because I know midwives that are like, oh, unassisted births are dangerous. Don't do that. Women, a lot of women choose that because they should feel like that's their only option. If you're a Black woman, the hospitals are very much biased and racist towards you. So a lot of women who are, more radical in the way they live, they choose to birth outside of that system. And sometimes that looks like not having support, not having family, because they're like,
right.
They're conditioned to say that you need to be in a hospital. This is a medical emergency. What if you die? I so much believe in spirit and the spiritual world, co-creating and helping you. And this is why it's important to like know what you want and be intentional. And really, like, if this is what you want, say it and stick with it.
Yeah.
Don't compromise on what you believe or what you want because someone's telling you that, oh, you can't have it or it can't be like that. That's bullshit. Yeah.
And be willing to have it, right? Like you have such a willingness and a courage to lean into the mystery and to not know what it's going to look like, right? I mean, so now you and I have become friends, so I'm familiar with
you at this stage of your life too, where you're still absolutely doing it in such a graceful, beautiful, exciting way. And that you had a dream and you just were like, let's go feel it out, because this is what I'm calling in and this is what I'm open to having, which I think there's a distinction to be made there, because lots of people sit around talking about what they want, but I wouldn't say a lot of people are super willing to have it and to lean into the unknown or the mystery of how it's going to happen, right? And so your willingness to follow this dream and just open up to it allows for all of that flow and magic to come in, instead of just sitting on your couch at home talking about it, not doing anything to kind of open up that mystery, right? Like the box, like Pandora's box, or the magic that is for you and coming for you.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and I do want to talk about that. Like, I feel like once you've shifted your consciousness into another reality, that you're not just this body, you're not just this life, why not live it to the fullest and not just sit in fear of what might happen and what might never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how like I strive to live my life, like authentically, like doing what brings me joy and not necessarily knowing what's going to come, but trusting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've lived in many different states, like with my girls, and it's just like trusting spirit, like, oh, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it, and not necessarily thinking about the limitations or what could go wrong or what can happen, but setting the intention to, for one, like connecting with what brings you joy and pursuing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like authentic birth and authentic living goes hand in hand. And I feel like a lot of women might, birth is that initiation to be your authentic self. A lot of women, have a hospital birth and it's shitty, they're traumatized, but it becomes a gateway and a window for healing and for them to tap into their power and to fully lean into it.
Mm-hmm. It could become that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's true for all of life's experiences, right? I mean, the way you spoke about, your first daughter passing, and you could have easily taken on a life is horrible and against me and bad things happen to me and this is so personal, and you chose not to take that on. It's really powerful, and that's not the mainstream way of existing, right? In today's culture. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that. So then what happens? So then you now have your little baby in Boulder, and what happens next?
Well, we're in Boulder for, we stayed there for a year. Ultimately we left because like it was very non-diverse in Boulder.
Yeah, for sure.
I grew up in a very like cultural rich area. I'm Jamaican, and then I'm in Philadelphia, which is like a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up going back to Philadelphia to my mother and my family to have that support and everything. And then, coming back to Philadelphia, I'm on the road again. Since then, like I've always known that I wanted to live in an eco-village and be a midwife. So I started researching and looking at different eco-villages around the United States. And I visited Ithaca Eco-Village like this summer before I actually moved. And it was lovely, but, I was going to move there. But then thinking about like the cold ass winters and all of that, I was like, no.
I feel you. Yeah. There's like so many amazing things happening in places with really cold winters. I'm like, I'll catch you on the summer.
Yeah.
Totally.
But then, I had researched the farm years prior when I was like looking into permaculture and looking at sustainability. And like, I was like, oh, the farm, that makes sense. So I started, talking to them and emailing them like this is December 2018.
Also not super known for its racial diversity.
Not at all. We became the diversity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask that. So you did go there and you lived there for how long? A year?
Yeah.
And were you the only Black family there?
Yeah. We're the only
Black
family.
Okay. So how was that experience?
Beautiful place. Like the land is amazing. some great people,
Mm-hmm.
but still, NARM is there, spiritual midwifery,
And
but
Iname is
it's not
not even there.
it's not there.
Yeah.
So
So what was your role? What were you doing there exactly?
I was just living there. I went there to see
Okay.
if I can pursue midwifery and get training there. However, it didn't work out that way. Like a lot of the women, they were, I don't know if I want to say like a part of the patriarchy, but they were like a lot of the midwives that are there were from the 70s. They're from a totally different era. And, they just have another way of thinking.
And they're all medicalized.
Yeah, they're all medicalized because they're like on NARM and all of those, all those standards that they uphold. It's all medicalized. So that really didn't jive with me. And then, I was told that they serve a lot of the Amish people and they don't like Black people, so I wouldn't attend a lot of births. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not staying here.
Hell
and
no.
I decided to like leave, like
Good.
that. And I'm really glad I made that decision.
So you did a year there, but didn't really find the open door for birth apprenticeship or whatever. And they just openly told you like the communities they serve are racist.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, the College of Traditional Midwifery is there. I reached out to them because, I'm a single mom. I'm there living, paying rent to live there. There's not a lot of work opportunities. So I'm like, I came here to study midwifery, but I can't afford your school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I see that the majority of the population that comes to your school are white women that are either they have family money, their family are funding their education, or they have a husband and they don't have to work and they can just do whatever they want. And I'm like, that's not my case. Can you guys help me?
Mm-hmm.
And they offered no support or assistance. And that's when I was like, that's the last straw.
I guess just I want to hear, kind of take us up into current of, like what is, obviously you took our school recently, and I would just love to hear you speak on like where you are in your journey of becoming a midwife and kind of just figuring this out, and any like words of wisdom to share for other women, and just where you are with all of this now.
Well, while I was at the farm, I met another midwife that lives in Atlanta, and Karina, and then I met Salam, which was like one of the only Black midwives that were on the farm with them in the 70s, and even today she's, there sometimes. They're both in Atlanta. So I connected with them, and I came here and started to go to births, with that home birth midwife. However, I started to see some of the fear model coming in, and that really made me really started to rethink how I wanted to practice midwifery. So that really changed my trajectory. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, a part of me wants to, have this CPM status so that I could, possibly live in a state where that I can get paid through insurance and serve, people of color and families that might not be able to pay right out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other part of me is like totally radical and just wants to do this work and support women and families in the way they want to birth.
Mm-hmm.
And a large percentage of that is outside the system. Yeah, so right now I'm here. I took the school and I love it all. And my goal is to really grow my business here in Atlanta. I really love it here because there's a diversity. There's a large Black population. There's so many different colors here. And I see it as an opportunity, with all the things that I love to do to really bring this, to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in like primitive skills and nature connection and bringing all those things together to support families in an authentic way is my vision.
Yeah.
I view life and experiences as being blessings and lessons, even the hard shit that I don't want. You know what I mean? So, even with death, what was the blessing? What was the lesson? Everything I look at like that, bad and good. There's something that wisdom you can gain from that experience to move forward into your life in a better way. So that's what I want to leave everyone with, be intentional, look at what you want to create, how you want your life. Are the people and things that are currently in your circle, in your cipher, in alignment with that? And if it's not, do some shifting.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this was really lovely to learn more about your story. And I've so valued the friendship I found in you this year. And yeah, just thank you for your time and your willingness to share all your lessons and blessings.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was definitely something I've been wanting to just share with the world more. And I look forward to doing it more and maybe inspiring others to live more authentically and birth how they want to birth.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And that's it for today, my sisters. Check out everything we do, including one-on-one and group coaching, learn about our private membership, in-person retreats, and more on freebirthsociety.com. Our online courses are on freebirthsocietycourses.com, including our flagship course, The Complete Guide to Free Birth. Don't miss the Radical Birthkeeper School if you're ready to become the authentic midwife that women are searching for. Together we rise, and the revolution starts inside each of us. Our opening song is by Shyla Ray. And now, I'll leave you with our Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back